All right, this is Bob Maloney from my MMA News, and I am joined by Luke Staley tonight. Luke has a fight coming up at Stellar Fights on August 17th. Stellar Fights, baby. How you doing, Luke? Good to talk to you, my man. You're right in the middle of camp. It's getting close. How you feel?
Dude, I feel great. I like fighting at lightweight. I feel like I have more energy. I'm training twice a day, but I'm not dreading training like I do sometimes cutting all that weight to featherweight, and I feel pretty good. Yeah, it's my second fight at lightweight, so very excited.
Well, Luke, you're a full-time college student, but you also obviously are dedicated to training and fighting. What was the trigger for you? What pulled you into mixed martial arts? How did you get started?
So I did traditional martial arts for a long time. I got my youth black belt in Taekwondo, all that good stuff, and I really like the Ninja Turtles too. I just always wanted to be a Ninja Turtle, right? Um, but it was actually a rerun on the old ESPN Massa Network, like a sister channel of ESPN, did a rerun of Frankie Edgar versus Maynard 2, and I just caught it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this fight is amazing. Like I'm a huge MMA nerd. I watch a lot of the sport, and just seeing that fight, if you remember, Frankie got dropped 3 times in the first round, and watching him come back, and I was like, man, just like physically, that's cool, but more than anything, the mental toughness of what it took to compete and persevere through that onslaught of the first round and the heart that Frankie showed. That was like, man, I want to try that sport out. So when I got to college, I figured, hey, it's a good time in my life. I'm a little busy with class, but in a weird way, I have more free time than I'll ever have. So I just Googled the closest MMA gym near me. Uh, walk there, walked in, it was an open mat, and the only guy was a black belt, and he just worked me. He was like 20 pounds later, tapped me out like 50 times, and I was like, man, this is awesome. And I signed up. It's like 2.5 years ago, and I haven't looked back since.
Are you at the same place now?
Yeah, so I split my training camps between Clinch Academy MMA with Luke Reinhardt and Bauer House MMA with Chris Bauer and Rob McCraw. And between those two teams, I have a really solid camp.
Great. Now, who's some of the guys that you're sparring with, and who's some of the guys that are kicking your ass, getting you ready for the fight?
Yeah, so some stellar fights veterans, Terry Bartholomew, Jason DePaldos challenged for the title against Lions a while ago. Just won a big fight on Cowboy Fights. Jason will be going pro in November. And then Terry, Stellar Fights alumni, obviously former bantamweight champion at Shogun, and doing some big things now. I think he's 7-2, 8-2. So those two guys are both 35ers and 45ers. So just having those two killers in the gym to kick my butt every day, or this is my main training partners, really has me feeling prepared mentally going into this fight.
That's great. So now, since you're not really cutting much weight, since you're fighting at 55, it's got to be a little bit different camp for you. Especially, do you feel stronger since you're fighting at a heavier weight and not having to really watch your weight as much?
Yeah, I still walk around about 170, so I'm cutting about 15 pounds, but it's a lot that last week and a half for featherweight. So um, the big thing is I'm looking forward to training. I'm getting so much. I'm able to push 100% after every training session, eat, recover, and then train again. The next day, the next morning, and I do feel stronger. But more than anything, you lose a little bit of your cardio during that cut week, having to cut so much weight, and my energy levels just are through the roofs. I mean, the rounds that I'm putting in are unbelievable. Every fighter says that, the best camp of my life, but really, this has been the best camp of my life.
That's great. That's great. Now, Johannes Rosene, that's, I hope I say his name right. No disrespect to him. Do you know anything about him, your opponent? What's the story there?
Yeah, so this fight is gonna be a barn burner. He's 1-3, so not the shiniest record on paper, but if you look at his fights and the guys he's fought, they're all close fights and they're killers. He fought Olive, who's currently an undefeated, professionally fought Sadiq Youssef, who's currently 9-1 and undefeated in the UFC. So he came up short, obviously, against Sadiq, but not for nothing. He has experience, and that's always dangerous. So I'm not looking past this guy at all. He's 5'11", so a little taller. He's got reach, and he comes to scrap. We watched all his fights. He doesn't quit. So definitely looking forward to it. I like a tough challenge. So I was excited to see that he comes and brings it, because I bring it every time. Yeah.
Yes, you do. I've seen you fight a couple times, and you always bring the action. You sound like you are really a student of the game. Do you watch as much MMA on TV as you can, or do you watch a lot of film, whatever you can? Or you said you're a junkie, so do you watch yourself? Do you film yourself sparring at all?
Mm, I don't film myself sparring. I kind of just let my coaches do that. Tell me what I need to do better. I find that because uh, I'm so analytical in my procedures, sometimes I overanalyze, right? And so in the beginning of my career, I would watch a lot of film on my opponents, but I felt like sometimes I would freeze up uh, during my fights. In my most previous fight, unanimous decision victory over Yas Semi out of Makito, real tough gym. I had to take that fight on 1 day's notice because my opponent missed weight by 10 pounds. And during that fight, I felt like I was flowing and performing a little more loose than I normally do. So I've just found, sort of through trial and error, that if I focus more on myself during the camp, I have a better performance.
Great, great. All right. Before we give out any shout outs, since you're a big Ninja Turtle fan, who's your favorite Ninja Turtle?
That's a great question. I always wanted to be Raphael, but the more I kind of get to know myself, I think I'm a little bit more of a Leonardo. I mean, um, I'm a leader in the gym, and my whole goal is to be a coach. Like, since I started, my goal has been to be the best coach that I think I can be in mixed martial arts, and I felt like I owed it to myself to see how far I could compete. I truly believe that I'm going to have a good little run as a professional, but like from the bottom of my heart, I believe I could be a world champion coach, uh, maybe 10, 15 years down the road. And so all this, the competing, I want to go pro after college, the amateur at great shows like Stellar, this is all so I can pay my dues and one day be a really good coach. So I think Leonardo's probably that Ninja Turtle for
Awesome,
me.
awesome. Once again, I am with Luke Staley, and he is going to be entering the cage at Stellar Fights on August 17th in Hockessin, Delaware. Luke, before we go, give out some shout outs to some love. Maybe not somebody who in the gym who's supporting you, but somebody who gives you some moral support, who's going to be there, rooting for you, screaming for you to have your hand raised.
Yeah, my little brother Michael is a huge inspiration, so I want to shout him out for sure. My parents, my mom and dad, who endure watching their son get punched in the face, and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for sure, man. I mean, he's the person who my Lord who enables me to really give my all to the sport, and that's who I got to give my number one thanks to. But thank you so much for your time, Bob. Great interview. I really appreciate it.
Hey,
And I
Luke,
will see
man.
you at the fights.
Hey, listen, I appreciate the young guys like you. You're in there in the gym grinding, and you know what? You're not getting paid. So this is like you said, you're paying your dues. I'm glad you realize that, and I know you got a bright future ahead of you, and I can't wait to see you do your thing, man.
Thank
It's
you.
awesome.
Yeah,
Best of
doing it
luck
for the
to you,
love of the
Luke.
sport. Get ready to be on the edge of your seat. It's going to be a barn burner for however long it lasts. I am going to bring it. These tickets aren't cheap. People are coming to see fights. I am going to give them their money's worth for sure.
All right, come out and see Luke Staley, man. He's bringing it, and he said he's worth every penny of admission.
Thank you very